There's a lot of conversation out there and there's a lot of noise sometimes. And, it's my goal to always cut through the noise and make things as simple as possible. So, what's going on, everybody? Schuyler Diehm here, men's fitness coach. And in this video, I really wanted to dive into the difference between organic and conventional or non-organic. I think there's a lot of conversation out there and there's a lot of noise sometimes, and it's my goal to always cut through the noise and make things as simple as possible. So if you don't know who I am, my name is Schuyler Diehm. I'm a men's fitness coach, and we specialize in helping men lose fat quickly and effectively using fasting, mindfulness, and fitness. And so one of my major focuses when it comes to mindfulness and when it comes to awareness is understanding how certain foods you put in your body impact you. Understanding how, it's not about fads, it's not about following things that people say you should do, but really understanding okay, if I put this in my mouth, how is it going to impact me? And so when we talk about organic, when we talk about conventional, really what we're talking about is how a food is grown and how it's processed. You can have organic crops such as vegetables like peppers, cucumbers, squash, everything like that. You can have organic meats, organic chicken, organic beef, organic pork. And then you can also have organic boxed goods, right? Just foods which are basically a mixture of organic ingredients. And so really what I would love to do is just go through a couple different things of how these foods compare, and then ultimately at the end of this video tie it all up so you have a good understanding of when should I eat organic, when is it okay to eat conventional. So as we think about how this world has evolved, as we think about all the different ways that food is produced, we have to understand that food is not really food anymore. Most conventional foods have some sort of man-made aspect to it, whether it's ingredients created in the lab, pesticides sprayed on real food, or even just crops that have been modified to be something that they originally weren't. And so when we talk about organic, we usually mean closest to its most natural form. And when we talk about conventional, we usually mean something that doesn't really have many boundaries, right? Something that could have pesticides sprayed on it, could have ingredients that are made in a lab. And so if you know me, one of my philosophies is eat food closest to its natural form as possible. The more humans seem to interact with things, the more that they tend to interact with our body in a negative way. And so that's the first thing, right? If you're going for something and you want to eat healthy, if you don't know anything about the food, organic is probably a good bet, because organic means it's probably closer to its natural form than conventional food. Another thing when it comes to organic versus conventional is pesticide use. Now, with organic, you're using natural forms of pest control, right? A pesticide is something to keep away pests. And so we're using insects, we're using birds, we're using pest traps, we're using many natural things that don't really interact with the food itself. Whereas with pesticides, you're using some sort of man-made spray that's usually packed with chemicals, and you're spraying it all over the food. So same thing goes for herbicides. Herbs is usually when it's coming to specific foliage. And so with organic, you're rotating crops, you are pulling out weeds by hand, you're using certain mulches, and again, it's more of a natural route of production. Whereas with conventionally grown crops and foods and ingredients, it's usually using an herbicide, which is basically a specific type of pesticide. Now, when we get into the talk of genetically modified foods, this is where the previous two really come into play. So with organic, you know that something is not genetically modified. Organic means there's been no genetic modification, there's been no playing around with changing the genes, anything like that. Whereas conventional genetic modification may be included. You can have something that's not organic but not GMO. You should have something that says GMO certified on there or non-GMO certified. But if it doesn't say that, potentially odds are it has been genetically modified. Now, where we run into issues with this, especially with conventional food, is that if something's genetically modified, it can be modified to be resistant to pesticides and herbicides, meaning that the amount that you would spray on a food that would normally kill it, you can now spray a ton more and it's not going to die. And so what ends up happening with these conventional crops is that pesticides that really aren't safe for our body, they kill our gut bacteria, they mess with our hormones, they mess with our digestion, our metabolism, is that they're overly sprayed on these crops, and because of it, we're getting a lot more pesticides than we should be in our body. Another differentiator with organic and conventional is just use of soil. So organic uses, completely natural means, so manure, compost, other natural forms of soil, whereas conventional could use things such as synthetic fertilizer. So again, more man-made. Now, as far as certification, so this is a really interesting point. So something can be organic, but not labeled as organic, because to have that label, that little green and white label that says as organic, they actually have to go through a process. They have to pay and they have to have tests done to basically get that certification for organic. And so there's the test and there's the fee. Whereas conventional, there's really no regulation, right? Because they don't have to claim that they're organic, there's not going to be a price tag there, there's not going to be any tests they have to run, any salary or anything that they would pay for that. Which brings me to my next point, which is price, obviously, right? If you've gone to the grocery store, you probably know this, organic food is usually more expensive. Conventional is going to be less expensive, and there's a good reason for that, right? If we're using more natural means, there's more of a financial risk and also just a higher financial requirement to create those things. Whereas you could create a cheap pesticide and you could just spray it over your food. Now you have to monitor, you have to make sure certain ingredients aren't getting in, certain bugs and everything else aren't getting into your crops. And then of course with the organic, you have to pay for that certification, which is just another thing on top of that price tag. And so the final thing to mention is that if a food is organic, it doesn't necessarily mean there are zero pesticides. It doesn't necessarily mean it's 100% organic. If something is certified organic, all the requirement is that 95% or more of the ingredients in that food are organic. So let's say you have a protein bar and 80% of that protein bar is oats that are organic, and then 15% of that protein bar, or let's say 16% of that protein bar is chocolate that's organic, and then you have that 4% that are other ingredients that aren't necessarily organic. That thing could still be labeled as organic. So organic doesn't necessarily mean that everything in that food is organic. Basically it just means you're going to have to read the label to see what is and what isn't. So those are my differentiators, right? It's pretty straightforward. It's pretty simple to understand. Organic is going to be much more natural, much more earth-made, whereas conventional and non-organic is going to be more from the position of man-made, man-intervened, and us kind of digging our hands into things that potentially they shouldn't be. So how do you use this information, right? How do you take what you've learned and go out? Because I'm not a firm believer. I don't think you should eat everything 100% organic. I really think that's, number one, it's going to hurt your bank account all the time. But number two, if you're going out somewhere, you're just going to be overly anal and not able to enjoy some of the food that's there. And so what I would say is if you are cooking, go organic about 80 to 90% of the time. And if you can, really prioritize the fruits and vegetables that don't have any sort of skin as organic. There's a list out there called the Dirty Dozen, and they're updating it every year, and it's basically the 12 dirtiest fruits and vegetables out there, meaning the fruits and vegetables that test highest when it comes to pesticides. And all of these are the ones without skins, right? Bananas, avocados, all those, if you spray pesticides on them, they have that outer layer that's soaking up a little bit and not letting all of it get through to the fruit or veggie. Whereas with something like grapes or berries, strawberries, or kale or spinach, those are things where they don't have any skin, so if they get sprayed, it's immediately absorbed by the fruit, which is then consumed by us. And then of course, if you're looking at ingredients where it comes to snacks, I always just go organic. I think that's one of the best options, but again, 90% of the time. Don't be overly anal about this. Don't be something where you won't even touch anything if it's not organic. Be a human being, but find strategies to consume more ingredients. And then one final thing I would say is if you're not fasting already, start fasting. One of the benefits of fasting, which is basically taking some time not to eat, is your body gets to push out all the toxins that build up in your body. The pesticides, the toxins from cleaning products, all these things that we consume, our body then has a chance to push it out. Why I'm such a big proponent of it, it's incredible for weight loss, it's incredible for health and energy. The more I learn about it, the more I'm just blown away by just how incredible it is. So if you're interested in learning more about that, you don't know anything, you can go in the description of this video. We put together a free guide that's going to walk you through step by step how we use fasting and also just why we use it and why it's so effective, as well as how we use mindfulness, awareness, and fitness to get really incredible weight loss results. So with that being said, make sure to leave me a comment below. What's the ratio right now of what you're consuming? Like what percentage would be organic and what percentage would be conventional? Let me know in the comments, but besides that, reach out if you have any other questions, subscribe to the channel, and of course, with that being said, make sure to eat smart, move more, sleep deep, and be grateful for this moment. I'll see you in the next video.